Last week, I was fortunate enough to get to go to Google I/O, and I wanted to go through that, kind of explain what Google I/O is, what they do, and some of the things we saw at Google I/O. Typical, our normal way works. Just if you have a question or if I'm going too fast or whatever, just speak up and we'll fix that. Okay? Cool. Okay, so here's what I'm going to go through. First, I'm going to explain for those people that don't know what Google I/O is and kind of the agenda for Google I/O this year. And surprise, surprise, it had a lot to do with AI. And then we'll go through the keynote. I'm going to play some videos from CNET, I believe it is. And then some of the fun and not so fun things about I/O this year. And we'll go through some of the breakout sessions and the best and most unexpected session. And we'll finish up then with the challenge they're putting out, where they're putting out some real money, like over $1 million for applications and things like that that use their tools in AI. So here's your chance to make some money. Any questions on that? Okay, I'm gonna get started. All right, so what is I/O? I/O is an annual developer conference they have every year, and it's where developers, we get to go and learn more about what's going on with Google. It's at the Shoreline Amphitheater in Mountain View, California, which just happens to be co-located or right next to the Google campus, which is really good because then they can bring over all their engineers, product managers, all of that stuff to the event. And actually, if you have a question and you corner somebody, they can say, I don't know, pick up their phone and call somebody, and somebody will pop on over to have a conversation with you about the thing. So that's pretty neat. And also, Shoreline is a pretty good venue. Like I said, it's next to the Google campus. And that means, as you'll see, there are a lot of Google resources available. And ones that we actually made use of, spoiler alert, is the bicycles. If you're not familiar with those at Google, they're rainbow colored bicycles. And I'll explain why that was.
It's almost Pride Month.
It's almost Pride Month. No, it has nothing to do with Pride Month.
To do that with a straight face, sorry.
Yeah, well, you did a pretty good job, Sally, with the straight face. I could tell why you're a CEO. You could sling that stuff with a straight face, man. Okay. So the length has varied from 2 to 3 days, but there are typically things ahead of it and behind it. In other words, like I'm part of what's called the Google Development Expert Program. And so we had like a meeting the day before on Monday and then the day after on Thursday. So they usually have some other things. And they have a bunch of groups they bring together from around the world. I'll show you some pictures I took so you can get an idea of the number of people that were there. Now, not all of these are like, people in various programs. A lot of them were press because the press does cover this. The tech press, at least, covers this event quite a lot. Okay, there are also actually post Google I/O events called I/O Extended. And let me just click this here. So if you're not in the Bay Area, it's tough to go to the Bay Area, but they have these here, and they have these various events. And if you go to, was it GDG, Community Dev I/O Extended, or just, Google I/O Extended, they have a lot of these, like they're having a conference here in Sunnyvale. There's one in Vancouver, Chicago. There's a Build with AI event in Burnaby. I believe that's Canada. I don't know if anybody knows.
Yeah, that's in Vancouver, or basically in Vancouver.
Okay, well, that's right. You're neck of the woods, huh, Richard?
There are a bunch of VCs and stuff there as well, or was it mostly active participants?
I'm sorry. I didn't quite hear you there, Sully.
Were there a bunch of VCs there as well? I mean, this year seems interesting in that. So I just got the VC private placement report for last month, and 50% of investments were in the AI space last month, which suggested that were they there, or were they kind of not looking at the Google I/O as a place finish?
That's a good question. It is kind of a technical focus versus a business focus. So I don't know if that meshes well with that, but there are any number. One of the things about it being right at the Google campus is they do have a lot of special events for VIP type customers, not me, but VIP type customers that they can then get engineers for product managers, program managers, and things, and just grab them literally out of their office and have them pop over in a 5-minute walk. So, or go there and wine and dine or whatever you do, and that sort of thing. So but I really don't know about that. Let's see, yeah. And they have all these events. You can see here's one in Philadelphia. Some of these are in, Quito, Ecuador, I believe. La Paz, is that Peru? Does anybody know? Anyway, they're worldwide. Korea, you can see them just go on and on and on. And they're all kind of the extended event. They'll put either, online, or they'll get somebody to go there, or they'll get with the group I'm part of, the GDEs, we have one of those in the area, they'll put it on and or they'll go speak. They'll do the technical speaking, not the running of the conference. Okay. All right. So they have those, and those are typically either online or in-person events. Let's see, what else? Okay. So here's the agenda for this year's I/O. It was Tuesday and Wednesday. Day one was in the amphitheater, and that's a picture of the amphitheater. And then they had a whole lot of presentations in the morning. The presentations ran from about 10 to 2:30 or something like that. And then in the rest of the day, there were a lot of demos and talks and various booths and tent around the amphitheater property. Day two, it was just purely demos, talks, and the booths and tents, and a lot of cool displays, and we'll go into some of those in various places throughout the amphitheater grounds. And this is my seat where I was. That's about 5 or 6 rows back there. And these are all the GDE people over here. They give us nice seats. We're pretty close to the front, but all the speakers are on the opposite side of the stage from where we're seated. So I think we did a good job at least of filling all the shots when they took them and made it look like it was full. But you can see they have a pretty good crowd. I don't know how many rows back that goes, but it goes way back there. If you've ever been to Shoreline Amphitheater, because they do concerts and things there and what have you not. It's not a huge venue, but it's a pretty nice venue. And it has this really, really helpful sunshade, I guess you would call it, over, because in the afternoon, if you're out in that sun, it can be pretty darn brutal. Okay, any questions about the agenda or anything? No? Okay, it's pretty straightforward. So let's watch a couple of videos here. And if anybody has any questions about these, stop. What this is this is a video that CNET put together of that 4.5-ish hours and cut it down to 12 minutes, because I didn't think any of you guys wanted to sit there and watch that. But if you see anything that you have questions on, tell me to stop. I'll stop and I'll try to do my best to answer.
All of you with us. More than 1.
Can you guys hear the audio?
Yes.
Okay.
1.5 million developers use Gemini models across our tools. You're using it to debug code, get new insights, and to build the next generation of AI applications. We've also been bringing Gemini's breakthrough capabilities across our products in powerful ways. We'll show examples today across search, photos, workspace, Android, and more.
Today, we have some exciting new progress to share about the future of AI assistants that we're calling Project Astra. Building on our Gemini model, we've developed agents that can process information faster by continuously encoding video frames, combining the video and speech input into a timeline of events, and caching this for efficient recall.
Tell me when you see something that makes sound.
I see a speaker, which makes sound.
Do you remember where you saw my glasses?
Yes, I do. Your glasses were on the desk near a red apple.
What can I add here to make this system faster?
Adding a cache between the server and database could improve speed.
What does this remind you of?
Schrodinger's cat.
Today, I'm excited to announce our newest, most capable generative video model called VO.
Pause for applause.
VO creates high-quality 1080p videos from text, image, and video prompts. It can capture the details of your instructions in different visual and cinematic styles. You can prompt for things like aerial shots of a landscape or a time-lapse, and further edit your videos using additional prompts. You can use VO in our new experimental tool called Video FX. We're exploring features like storyboarding and generating longer scenes. VO gives you unprecedented creative control.
Core technology is Google DeepMind's generative video model that has been trained to convert input text into output video.
It looks good.
We are able to bring ideas to life that were otherwise not possible. We can visualize things on a timescale that's 10 or 100 times faster than before.
Today, we are excited to announce the 6th generation of TPUs called Trillium. Trillium delivers a 4.7x improvement in compute performance per chip over the previous generation. It's our most efficient and performant TPU today. We'll make Trillium available to our cloud customers in late 2024. Alongside our TPUs, we are proud to offer CPUs and GPUs to support any workload. That includes the new Axion processors we announced last month, our first custom ARM-based CPU with industry-leading performance and energy efficiency. We're also proud to be one of the first cloud providers to offer NVIDIA's cutting-edge Blackwell GPUs available in early 2025. One of the most exciting transformations with Gemini has been in Google Search. In the past year, we've answered billions of queries as part of her search generative experience. People are using it to search in entirely new ways and asking new types of questions, longer and more complex queries, even searching with photos, and getting back the best the web has to offer. We've been testing this experience outside of labs, and we are encouraged to see not only an increase in search usage, but also an increase in user satisfaction. I'm excited to announce that we'll begin launching this fully revamped experience, AI Overviews, to everyone in the US this week, and we'll bring it to more countries soon.
Say you're heading to Dallas to celebrate your anniversary, and you're looking for the perfect restaurant. What you get here breaks AI out of the box, and it brings it to the whole page. Our Gemini model uncovers the most interesting angles for you to explore and organizes these results into these helpful clusters. Like you might never have considered restaurants with live music, or ones with historic charm. Our model even uses contextual factors, like the time of the year. So since it's warm in Dallas, you can get rooftop patios as an idea. And it pulls everything together into a dynamic, whole-page experience. You'll start to see this new AI-organized search results page when you look for inspiration, starting with dining and recipes, and coming to movies, music, books, hotels, shopping, and more.
I'm going to take a video and ask Google,
I like this one.
why will this not stay in place? And in a near instant, Google gives me an AI overview. I guess some reasons this might be happening and steps I can take to troubleshoot. So looks like first, this is called a toner, very helpful. And it looks like it may be unbalanced, and there's some really helpful steps here. And I love that because I'm new to all this, I can check out this helpful link from Audio Technica to learn even more.
And this summer, you can have an in-depth conversation with Gemini using your voice. We're calling this new experience Live. Using Google's latest speech models, Gemini can better understand you and answer naturally. You can even interrupt while Gemini is responding, and it will adapt to your speech patterns. And this is just the beginning. We're excited to bring the speed gains and video understanding capabilities from Project Astra to the Gemini app. When you go live, you'll be able to open your camera so Gemini can see what you see and respond to your surroundings in real time. Now, the way I use Gemini isn't the way you use Gemini. So we're rolling out a new feature that lets you customize it for your own needs and create personal experts on any topic you want. We're calling these gems. They're really simple to set up. Just tap to create a gem, write your instructions once, and come back whenever you need it.
We've embarked on a multi-year journey to reimagine Android with AI at the core. And it starts with 3 breakthroughs you'll see.
Hey, Jerry, should we pause and discuss what we've seen so far? It's a ton of stuff.
Sure. Go ahead. Open the floor. The floor is open. Questions? What's that?
It was just a lot. That was a lot of information.
Yeah. Sorry about that. I maybe shouldn't have done the whole thing all at once.
No, it's all good.
It's cool that they have like they have some kind of a cognitive architecture in there that lets them remember where things are, and like they have like enough comprehension to be able to like remember where things were placed like previously. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty impressive that, you know, she, I guess, was just wandering through the office there with her phone, you know, capturing video, and it could essentially go back in the video and find the object. I guess it was her glasses she was looking for, and find those.
Probably because of the way that they're tokenizing the video feed, that they can actually perform a semantic search on the previous footage.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing, Richard. It may be more of just search the entire video rather than, you know, some sort of memory, contextual memory. I see glasses over here type of thing.
Mm-hmm. But the fact that it did it pretty quickly too. I did notice there was a bit of delay on some of those things, like the Schrodinger cat thing and what have you not. But it wasn't, you know, assuming that's real time. You know.
It took me a little bit of a delay as well, though.
To kind of figure out, what is that there?
Oh, okay, that's right. Who's that guy?
I also like the delay because I honestly want models that, like, if you give it some kind of a like a consideration loop where it has to reflect on what its response is before it gives you the response, like, I think that gives you better responses and is worth the time that you wait for it.
I have a quick question on it.
Go ahead.
Is there a concern for like security or privacy? Because you're going around, and if it's your home, that's fine, but you're in office, wouldn't those privacy things come into question, or that's not an issue there?
I think it's a huge issue. I don't know what they're doing about it, but you're absolutely right. I mean, you know, there are, you know, ever since people started carrying a phone with a camera in it, right, there's been all sorts of creepiness going on. And, you know, yeah, it is a big issue. If you think about, you know, people taking pictures of kids and things like that, right? What have you not, it could be way out there.
Like you said, that privacy issue is just a function of having a camera, you know, in your phone that you're carrying around. The question that I was wondering is, thinking of it more from a bandwidth perspective, like, where's the analysis going on for that video? Are we talking about server side?
It has to be in the cloud.
Well, maybe not. That was the new Pixel phone, and they do have a Gemini model that will run on that thing. Now, I don't know what its capabilities are. There's 3 sizes of Gemini now, and I think it's going to go down to 2. Actually, it'll go to 3, and 1 gets kind of renamed. Right now, there's like Ultra, which is a real big one, but I don't know that they're keeping that around beyond Gemini 1.0, and we're at 1.5 in the mid-size model, which is Pro. And then there's another variant of Pro coming out. But there's also a Gemini Nano, which has always been designed to run on phones and other devices. And that phone may have been using the Nano model. Because I believe...
Is the small model multimodal?
Yes, all Gemini models are multimodal.
Interesting.
Yeah. So yeah. Now, does it have to talk to a server? maybe, maybe not. But does any of the data go off the device? I don't believe it has to do that. So, other questions or thoughts and things like that? What we've seen so far. We just got a few more minutes on this.
What were the stats on the pardon me? What were the stats on the TPU? Was there anything interesting, particularly?
Yeah, I actually have a slide that I'll kind of go through that after this finishes, if that's okay. If we can just hold it, we'll come back to it. I thought it was interesting though that they also added. I don't know if they added that into the thing. Oh yeah. Don't forget to talk about NVIDIA. You know, we have that in our cloud centers too. Given that
was definitely a kind of non-contiguous comment there, non sequitur.
Yeah, well, you guys all saw, right, what their numbers were and their stock bump and things like that. So I think, you know, they are the big, you know, the big dog in that accelerator space. So they have to have it because not every customer is going to want to run in the TPU space. So
those TPUs are so hard to run.
Are they? I haven't done. All I've done is build it through models and things like that, but I've never tried to, you know, define my own job.
I've had 2 grants from them building a platform that integrates with it, and like, whoa, it's not easy.
Well, that's something you should get back
from Dave, Jerry, which is, what is Gemini Flash?
Gemini Flash. I'll actually get to that in a bit. It's a small model, and that's actually it's a lightweight model of lightweight version of Gemini Pro that runs on even smaller hardware, and it has lower cost. One of these things about running these things in the cloud is that when you go up to the cloud, essentially, you know, you're hitting the charge me button, if you will, you know, because I'm going to push tokens up to you or whatever from my app on my desktop and things like that, and you're going to process them. Flash has this like real low cost per token base, and then it has a very low cost, it has a big caching mechanism in it, so that if you do the same thing twice, let's say you were doing on your phone, you know, what is this, like that Schrodinger cat thing, or what is this, or what is that object sort of thing, that may use the same model. So if it's using it once, it may not charge you, or it'll charge you a very, very low rate for using that, if that makes sense. Same thing if you had a business and you were doing the same type of query over and over just for different objects in the picture, it would only charge you one time to spin that up. And then you'd get a very, very low price or no price for using that same model again. But it is more limited than the Pro model. Other questions that I might be able to answer?
The only reason I would poke on that one a little bit more is I went to the Weights and Biases conference a couple weeks ago, and everyone who had raised money and was like hanging out there talking about the models that they were building, when prodded, admitted that the unit economics weren't even close to crossing the line. And you know, very promising, super interesting, but the unit economics are really, really tough. Their gross margins were all pretty massively negative.
Are you talking about their company's gross margins were?
Yes.
Okay, so they're in that let's shake the tree type thing and see who's left standing type. Are we in that phase?
Was certainly what it felt like. Like, who's going to make it to the point where the service providers are able to do so at a price that allows the solution builders to be profitable and can survive long enough to make it to that time.
Yeah, that is, and I think, you know, we're just in the early days, and well, you've been around more of it than I have, Sully. You know, in that business space, well, regardless of the tech, forget about AI and anything, there's always this tech is too expensive type thing and a profitability curve, and you're trying to somehow make the profitability curve go over the, you know, well over the price of the tech and things like that. And sometimes the people that survive are the only ones that can work those numbers. So,
yeah, I get the feeling that if I were a service provider at this level, my goal would be to get to the point, I mean, cost would be capability, I got to chase it for the headlines, but cost will be the thing that the first party that's able to kind of get to capability that's headline worthy, doesn't have to be the best, but headline worthy, and bring the costs into alignment. We'll just see the massive, shift to them, because it changes all of the cost structures upstream.
Right. Especially these times, right?
Yeah, it's very fundamental.
Yeah, money's a bit tight now too. There's a lot of sizzle out there, but is there steak? You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, the VCs are almost dried up for throwing around cash.
Yeah, this is not 3 years ago or 4 years ago, right? Where they were just like lobbing the money over the wall or something like that. But yeah, it's a tough time.
Well, is it that they're going on previous revenue and things that they've already had commitments to?
I can't speak to that. Maybe Richard, you or Sully can.
I mean, only because it took years to develop it, and now it's out there. So, it'll have a certain sense of, you've made an investment in these technologies 3 years ago, and now it's showtime.
What was the question?
I don't know about anybody else, but it seems like this whole AI time frame is extremely compressed.
Oh, it's insanely compressed.
Yeah.
What was the question, Walter?
Well, I guess the question was that, he said that, the funding is drying up. And I'm thinking, is it because this is for the result of previous investments? And I'm thinking, these previous investments probably came out 3 years ago, and now is the fruition of these investments, no?
I don't think they're quite at like the cashing in on their investments yet. I think this is like basically where they've all put their bets down on the horses, and they're seeing who wins the race.
What's the turnaround time on when someone goes and conceptualizes? And I guess it's a hard question, but I guess.
Well, if you're like an angel investor, it's like 10 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Other questions then? Or
kind of
should
related, just a quick one, just kind of related. Sally, is it currently, or do you think kind of the per transaction operational cost is too high, or is it just that the whole startup cost is what is a problem right now?
Good question. I think the startup cost is something that generally patient investors are willing to pay for. It's the fact that with scale comes less profit. So it's really the per transaction. So like Ted and I did a little bit of an analysis for us. I don't know if Ted's on here. Yeah, Ted's on here. And at a high level, some of the neat things that we could do using some of the LLMs that are out there it would be cheaper to hire a full-time person. We have an office in the Philippines. So say, for example, in the Philippines or in Taiwan and in certain cases in the US, where it's cheaper to hire a person to just do this thing than it would be to use a model. Now, there's certain parameters that are controllable with the model, et cetera, et cetera. But it wasn't like it was 20% cheaper. It was like 200 or 300 or 400% cheaper in a lot of the cases. And so I think that's the kind of world that a lot of people are living in now. Video generation, I think, is one of the spaces where that's probably not quite true. And so I think that's why there's a lot of interest there, because the cost of producing 30 seconds of video is pretty high. But for a lot of the kind of typical text-based tasks, for the most part, the per inference cost was a little high. And then there was another question from Z here in the chat, by the way. But Roger, go ahead. Did that answer your question?
I think it did. I mean, it's an interesting aspect when they talk about AI taking all these jobs. It's not just that they can do it; they have to be able to do it and do it for a lower cost than the alternative.
And do it well.
Right. And all the emphasis is pushing it on being able to do them and do them well without consideration right now of the cost.
Yeah. I mean, I think, we're in that phase of holy shit, this can do. I mean, you and I have been talking about this for about a year and a half, right? The generative is really going to be kind of a fundamentally different thing. And the fact that it's being proven from 0 to 1, that 1 is possible, even at an extreme cost, is, I think, pretty promising. And then if you look at kind of the speed at which we're improving compute and things like that. I think there's certainly confidence that there's a time when that's going to happen, but there's not a lot of confidence about when that time is. Like, do you need to be a year patient, or do you need to be 3 years patient, or do you need to have capital for 6 years? How long is that need for, you know, extreme amounts of loss going to last?
It's also like a fairly safe bet, like that there is going to be the economies of scale, because like there's so much money that's been dumped into it that there's no way that there won't be economies of scale. Like, I think it's almost impossible.
Yeah, I mean, that it will happen, I feel very confident. That we're close to it today, I feel very confident that we're not. And then, you know, if I had to bet between 2 years, 1 year, 2 years, 5 years, and 7 years, I think I'd be wrong. That's what I would bet.
That's a safe bet.
You can never be too careful on something like this, right? So, yeah.
So the question from Z is about benchmarks on quality.
Oh, okay.
He says, how will models like these be tested and verified to be improved in the future? In a lot of industries, there are certified testers that do things. I wonder if there'll be certified process for newly trained models in the future. I believe there are a series of benchmarks, right, that are being used.
Yeah, there are some comparison benchmarks, but I think we're still in the early days of that.
Yeah, they're a little informal.
Yeah, it's almost like a team got it. It's more about the benchmarks on the physical element. Could you be a little more specific by what you mean physical, at least unless somebody else knows? I don't see the physical element context.
Yeah, I mean, I think the word that I would have latched onto is certification, right? Like, is it sufficient, right? Oh, okay, so locating physical.
Yeah, benchmark for locating physical devices, creative derivation. I think, well, I'm sure there's benchmarks for machine learning and just looking at things. But I don't know what those are. Maybe Ted, you or Sally does, because that's more your kind of work-related type thing.
I don't know of any.
Yeah, object detection, right, is what I think this comes down to.
Yeah, I mean, there's standard object detection benchmarks, which are primarily still frame, single image, and you can apply those frame-wise, you know, to a video. But no, I think it's really rough right now because you can't really know. There's not good benchmarks. But as soon as you release that into the public, if in fact it's mistaking your phone for eyeglasses, you know that people are going to instantly go online and absolutely blast your model, showing millions of people the stupid mistakes it made. So it's kind of tough.
Yeah, I think we're in that hype. You know how there's that technology curve, right? There's that big hype bubble or whatever you want to call it, mountain.
Yeah,
and I think
we're definitely disillusionment.
Yeah, that's where this will come, right? But we're kind of still on the mountain here, or maybe, you know, climbing it. I don't know exactly where we are, but we're in that hype sort of thing.
So like, I feel like we're still sort of on the hype part, and I'm a little bit optimistic, but perhaps, you know, that's because I'm too close to it or whatever. But I feel like the main thing is, if you know the use cases, so like if you want AI to write the whatever, you know, article for you, you're probably going to wind up in some trouble pretty quickly. Right. But if you're in any company where you have 10 people writing stuff, you probably can, I don't know, cut it in half, cut it in a third by having AI do all the first drafts and then having the people that you keep, like, still doing their jobs, but just with a head start. So I think if you look at use cases where you have multiple people and the people are verifying what the AI does, it's pretty clear that you can save money.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, who was it? Julius said we're becoming editors and managers. And I think that's true, right, with a lot of this. I mean,
it sucks for the new workforce because there's no entry-level positions anywhere anymore.
Well, no, that's true too. I mean, you know, if you go, I don't know if you guys ever go on YouTube, but people are like scared, shall I say, Photographers, people that used to do commercial photography. Does that go away, or does a lot of that go away? I don't know. I saw some of these channels, because I do a lot of photography just as a hobby, not professionally, but a lot of these professional photographers are scared, quite scared, that they don't have a future. Or if they do have a future, the amount of money they're getting will be, just a fraction. Their fees will be just down to a fraction. So
yeah, I used to be a graphic designer and a musician, and before all this, and it was drying up before I made the pivot into AI, and I'm glad I did.
yeah, that was probably a really good. You saw the writing on the wall, and made the jump. But unfortunately, probably a lot of other people won't be able to make that jump. But all right, I'm just going to finish this up on this thing then. Here, if that's okay, and then we could, because we have plenty of time to talk about some other things too. Okay. I'm going to actually move this to his kids thing. I kind of like this guy. He's the good dad, and I'll show you why in just a sec here.
One thing we've heard from students is that they're doing more of their schoolwork directly on their phones and tablets. So we thought, could Circle the Search be your perfect study buddy? Let's say my son needs help with a tricky physics word problem, like this one. My first thought is, oh boy, it's been a while since I've thought about kinematics. If he's stumped on this question, instead of putting me on the spot, he can circle the exact part he's stuck on and get step-by-step instructions, right where he's already doing the work.
Now, we're making Gemini
context. He can scroll down to the bottom and write the answer down for his teacher.
I am so glad you said that, because that was my exact thought. I mean, what has that kid learned about, what forces cause drag, and friction coefficients? Maybe nothing. I don't know. But thanks for saying that, Sully. As a physics major, I just watched like a semester go just poof. Why did I even bother learning all that crap,
It's unfortunate. People were going to be lazy with that, but it's the people who are really going to lose out are the ones who are lazy with it, because the reason I was able to make that pivot and do so much is because I just use it to consume knowledge. You can accelerate your learning dramatically if you use it correctly. You just don't make it do the work. You have to do the work. There's no way to get around it. But people are silly and they'll be lazy.
Yeah, I thought OpenAI did a good job. One of their GPT-4o demos, they had some problem. I don't remember what it was. Like a really easy problem, right? But just to kind of demonstrate it, they asked the GPT not to show them the step-by-step. They asked it to ask them questions to help them get to each next step. It was hard for me to tell if it really could do that, because it was I don't know, multiplying. It was something so simple, that it was yeah, those steps are really obvious, and the hints it's giving are maybe even a little bit too strong.
But in general, Ted, it sounds like moving to where instead of kind of answering your questions, you're asking it to be a teacher and teach you how to solve the problems.
Well, I mean, it's what Richard was saying. If you just ask it for the answer and it's easy enough problem, you'll get the answer. And then you won't have learned anything, and then you're screwed when you have to take the final, or you're screwed in life when you have to try to use it.
Yeah.
But if you want to do it right, you just look for where you're stumped, and you try to have it give you as little information as possible.
Yeah, you use it to give you the questions that you don't know how to ask. You don't know the question and how to ask it. Especially with jargon and stuff. Sorry, go ahead.
There's a lot of good stuff in the chat. I guess Dav said that they put a thing in there about some sort of product he's using with his children on this. That doesn't give them the answer, but causes them to think about the problem and to solve it that way. So I think that's a good idea. So maybe this is, these technologies come out, and then these other companies start appearing that create the technology that makes the assumption that you have this tool, or this capability, and forces you to really think about the problem. It's every once in a while, I'm sure when I was in college back in the day, no, there would be ways if you knew, like American history, the professor was lazy and gave the same test year after year after year. And so if you hung with the right people, you could literally get the answer key. And this really isn't all that much different. So, if they can break this cycle, that'd be good.
And then, Jerry, I think the next step is have it teach you how to be productive, given that you have access to that tool. The emphasis of the education is assume you have the tool. Now, what's the next step on top of that we build on top of that?
Which is going to be a shame for the people that don't have the tools.
Yeah, it'll be a have not, but that's not new, right? I mean, if you go to countries, outside of the, like the US and Europe and things like that, and watch how they build homes, for example, they don't have, a lot of jackhammers and pneumatic tools, and they're literally using a chisel and a hammer still, to like get bricks and carve bricks out and things like that in some of these places. So, but in US, to teach somebody, we'd have to teach them how to use a jackhammer and this and that. It's a different tool, but they could be much more productive. So I don't know.
I mean, one example that relates to schoolwork I like to give is spell check. You used to get points off because you misspelled words, and now it's quite rare because you just have a spell checker. But the point of it is the teacher hopefully can then focus on teaching you higher level things as opposed to focusing their time on teaching you spelling.
Yeah, people don't have to spend like 6 hours learning how to write cursive. Like,
well, or have their, maybe I'm dating myself, but we used to have like a spelling list of, like 20 or 30 words you had to memorize and be able to spell correctly and knew the definition of it. And that's what they tested you on it. But, they could have given us that and just said, just look it up in the dictionary or something like that. But, then we would have learned how to use the dictionary. This wasn't like an elementary school or, I don't know, kindergarten or something like that. I don't remember. Anyway, I'm going to skip some of these demos here and just kind of go to what they're doing on their phones and things like that. And then I think they'll finish up because I want to move us along, if that's okay.
Google AI directly into the OS elevates the entire smartphone experience. And Android is the first mobile operating system to include a built-in on-device foundation model. This lets us bring Gemini goodness from the data center right into your pocket. So the experience is faster while also protecting your privacy. Starting with Pixel later this year, we'll be expanding what's possible with our latest model, Gemini Nano with multimodality. This means your phone can understand the world the way you understand it. So not just through text input, but also through sights, sounds, and spoken language.
Before we wrap, I have a feeling that someone out there might be counting how many times we have mentioned AI today. And since the big theme today has been letting Google do the work for you, we went ahead and counted so that you don't have to. That might be a record in how many times someone has said AI.
Okay. I thought that was
the worst nerd joke ever.
Yeah. This is dad joke, Sally.
Literally the worst nerd joke.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, I wrote some key points down. These are kind of stupid, as you guys saw, but obviously they're deeply focused in generative AI, and they are making massive expenditures. They are laying off in other sections of the company, but not in the AI groups, because I think this is a potentially a bet your business type, thing, even for a big company like them, like Google. The Gemini is differentiated with Gemini family, blah, blah, blah. Let's see here. They just increased the token window from 1 billion to 2 billion tokens. So I kept asking this question, you know, how come Google can do this and other people can't? And finally, one guy said, we've just spent a lot of time on this particular thing. We think it's very, very key to our, advancing where our products are going to go. So, they've figured that out. It's a solved problem because they're looking at even maybe, taking 10, 15, 20 billion tokens out of whack, shove 6 hours of video in there. We'll deal with it. That sort of thing.
That's crazy. Like what, I can't imagine what you would need a billion, never mind 2 or 6. That's a lot of tokens.
Well, a billion.
Jerry, is that billion with a B or million? Because I thought they were at 1 million.
1 billion now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Jerry, do we know anything about how they're doing it? Have they published any papers on that?
I tried getting that information out of 6 or 7 engineering managers, and everybody was pretty tight-lipped. Dev is asking,
I've been looking specifically at the papers coming out of Google.
Is it million or billion? Do I have? Yeah. Okay. Anyway, and then the bottom one, this is their TPU thing. So let me go to the next slide here so we can get through. And this is the TPU. If you're not, I just put this in here in case people weren't aware. Between GPUs and TPUs. GPU, we're all familiar with those, NVIDIA, blah, 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 blah. And this is kind of like a comparison here in these two things. One thing, this is a TPUs only do tensor type operations, and they're proprietary to Google. And the things I highlighted are probably the most important things. It focuses on really on one set of operations, matrix multiplication plus ops. In that plus addition operations. So y equals mx plus b, type things. If you go back to, if you take apart a neural network, that's, kind of where you end up with. And how fast can you do those? So that's one of the things they've really optimized it for. Let's see here. And because of that, it is a coprocessor rather than a dedicated, just ship this thing off. You have to, some other processor kind of instructs the TPU on what to do and works back and forth with or supervises what it's doing. It only supports a 32-bit count, and they have lower power consumption, about 1/4 of a comparably powered GPU. Okay.
Yeah, a couple questions.
Yeah.
If I may. Lower bit count. So a lot of the stuff, as I understand, a lot of stuff is being done in like B16 and lower. Do you know?
Yeah, they can't. They have to use B16 for TPUs. It's like it's part of the architecture.
Okay, and nothing lower.
No, you have to quantize it off of the TPUs at the end.
Okay. And then the other one, Richard, was actually for you. Can you just in a sentence or two explain why it's difficult using TPUs?
Because they're built for use with TensorFlow. They do have ports for PyTorch, but they're a lot better than they were when I first tried it. And also I was learning at the same time, and that was like one of the first things that I was learning on. So it was not a good choice for learning, but basically you just fight with your environment all the time because there's a lot of really finicky settings that you have to set that are internal and external of the TPU to make sure that everything runs synchronously, because they're all like detached and they're all like in the cloud. It's like running Kubernetes.
Okay.
So Roger, I've only used TPUs a little bit, but my experience in terms of the actual compute was it was pretty painless. But like, it's pretty common that when you're working on some project, you'll have a bug in your code. And if you have a bug in your code on a GPU and say you have got a tensor with dimension, 4,000, and you try to shove it into something that's expecting something length 8,000, you'll get an error message that says like your object's the wrong shape. My experience running on a TPU is if you have any bugs, then the TPU bombs, it disconnects from your CPU, and that's how you know you have an error.
Okay.
And there's like the documentation is
Rolls
really
over and
sparse.
dies then.
And the documentation is really sparse, so there isn't like Stack Overflow where you can just go find answers.
Mhm.
It's like, yeah, it's kind of hard to find solutions if you don't know what's going on.
Okay, so interesting. So not so much kind of electrical architecture or something like that, but more ecosystem.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
But I think this addresses at one of the things, I know, Silly, you and I have had conversations about this, is the cost of doing these operations on our GPUs and other accelerators. And I think that's where they're looking from a cloud perspective. Can they offer people, hide all the complexities and things like that, and offer people a product that they can get good performance on a lower per cycle, whatever you want, whatever metric you want to use, on a lower cost basis. I think that is the lean, that where they're leaning towards that. And then that's why I put this last one where, things are hidden by the libraries and things like that. Because that's what, none of us is going to program one of these things directly. We're going to call a function or a series of functions that in of themselves calls this stuff. So
yeah, I mean, I think TF Lite is probably my favorite thing, kind of go in that direction, whether it's on top of a TPU or it's on top of whenever Intel decides to support that, Intel's libraries or the Halo libraries and the other accelerators that people are building.
Yeah.
Hey, Jerry, by the way, I'm not sure, I'm not an expert on GPUs, but I'm not sure that I would say that GPUs can run by themselves at the bottom of that third section.
Yeah. I mean, you still have to shove it off to the GPU. So yeah, maybe it just seemed to me that, in my mind at least, that the GPU could run with less supervision or less having to talk back to something that's controlling the code,
I think the line there would be the drivers are much more mature and they're push button, whereas the TPU drivers are a little bit more custom. I think when you start looking at it though, from a cloud training or cloud execution perspective, I think that layer of abstraction gets stronger and stronger and stronger though, right? I mean, our ability to basically have a notebook and then not really care about the back end architecture.
Yeah, it's great if you're running them on like out of their collab, especially because they have it pre-configured to work properly.
Yeah. Dev just corrected me and found the article where it says it's 2 million, not 2 billion. I'm sorry about that. Thanks, Dev.
Okay. Yeah, and what I would say is that I don't want to get into just pedantic arguments or whatever. What you do see on a GPU is that, for example, it'll spawn whatever you call it, multiple threads, and it'll do things and it'll run for a while on its own. So that's the part that it can do on its own. But a NVIDIA GPU, to my knowledge, has absolutely no control flow. So you can't do an if statement and you can't do this, then do that. You can just say, do this matrix multiply, but if the matrix multiplies 10 million by 10 million, it's actually going to spawn off a whole bunch of stuff and collect workers, and it's doing a lot of that by itself, to your point.
Okay. All right, I'm going to move from the slide then. Here's just some things the fun sort of things that we had here. They had food up the yin yang. I mean, everywhere. They had these really cool matcha croissants here. I ate this whole, I think this was after I left because, I ate those and things like that. So there's one thing that you go to this thing and you gain a lot of weight because they have this, and then they have these things here. That's like a salad, and that's probably I don't know, some roast beef or something in there. And you could literally just go up and stack these up, right? People had 6 of those things stacked up and were walking back to their tables. It's unbelievable. But anyway, it was something they could feed you well. Yeah, like Ted says, a well-fed developer is a happy developer. Actually, no, I didn't take these pictures. These are once again from the guys at CNET. So their photographers apparently like this stuff well enough. So that they did
Google
that.
and Facebook, the only places where they serve free lamb and with mint for lunch. But if you don't want that, you can go ahead and get the salmon foam and and halibut dish. It's insane, the food there.
Actually, what I was
mean, if I have to, I guess.
Yeah. Microsoft does that too when I was there. At least they did when I was there.
Stop serving truffles though on a regular basis.
How gauche. So pedestrian. The food is so pedestrian now, right? Yeah. Isn't that the right word? Yeah. But anyway, they definitely make sure you're caffeinated, sugared up, whatever you are up, so that you're really happy to be there. Walter said he went to Deck World. I used to go to Deck World when I worked for Digital. And they did have, big seafood. When you're in New England, they serve a lot of seafood. Okay, moving on. They had great demos too that I saw. Tons of demos showing off AI and general stuff. They had this really cool kind of thing where you could actually, they had a big soccer goal, I guess, like set up, and you had like 2 rectangles you were trying to hit with your soccer ball, and then they were ranking how well you did. I mean, they had like a spot where a defender would be, did you get it around there? And then, how fast they had a radar gun, how fast was the ball going in, blah, blah, blah. And so they had some sort of model running that. They had various art generators and things you could run. And then this thing, the chandelier at Google has a quantum laboratory. Did you guys know that? I didn't know that. In Santa Barbara. And this picture over here is the chandelier. All of this crap, this is not the Google one, this is IBM's, but they look virtually the same from the one that I saw. There's a big container here, and you're going to fill this with like something as close as I guess you can to absolute zero, liquid. And inside that container will be this structure here where you have all these interconnections, and there'll be a chip. I don't know if these are the chips or that's the chip, but all of this is like interconnection and wiring and other power and things like that to power it. So I thought that was really, really cool. But that was something. And then it was like nobody talking to this poor engineer there. So I bent his ear, and he whipped out diagrams and, things like that, and wrote all that. Somebody's saying superconductors. I think Dev's saying that. Yeah, I'm sure they're trying to lower the resistance down as low as they can on that. So that's probably what they're trying to achieve. Okay, moving on so I can get us finished with this. Things not so fun. They had protests, because of the war and things like that. And they were literally, the protesters shut down the entire, the show got over at like 4-ish, 3:34. From 4 on, they had shut down the entrances in and out of the amphitheater area. And that included the people who drove there, so they couldn't drive their cars out. So they blocked those, and then there were buses that many of us were, because we were staying in hotels, were taking to get transported, and we couldn't get that. If you're familiar with Google, and I don't know, I believe Microsoft does some Google has these bicycles all over their campus. Every single building you'll see just stacks of them sitting out, and they're just available for free because essentially what their campus is, I don't know, maybe like 12 by 12 square blocks of just buildings, and it's a long way to walk between them. So you just hop a bike, throw your laptop or whatever it is in that. Deb, what were they protesting? They were protesting the war in Gaza and things like that. And I think they were, trying to get Google to admit, are you doing work with it? Are you helping the Israeli government? What's your relationship with the Israeli government? Things like that. But I don't know. Like I said, we grabbed these Google bicycles, hopped like 6 blocks down this way, 6 blocks to the right, wherever we could to get away, and ordered up an Uber to get back, So that's what we ended up doing. I don't know what the other people did that didn't do that. But the way it works on the bicycles, as long as you're at any Google property, you can just essentially just, leave it there and somebody will come and pick it up sooner or later. But that was kind of a bummer, kind of put a, whole damper on the whole, we're so excited for things. So anyway, okay. There were, on day 2, there were primarily breakup sessions, and that's where a lot of the cool things went on. And there were some really good demos here. I'm going to put this slide deck up there and people can watch that out, because some of these are like an hour long. I really like this one that did Gemma, Laura, and Karis they were showing. And it had Lawrence, who's one of my favorite Google, what they call dev type managers. It goes out and demos all the stuff. He's really, really good. This other one, a multimodal RAG, was really good. And and they went through how they were doing it in Gemini, handling the multimodal parts, putting it all together. And, it was just a real good job, I thought. And then they had some that weren't, product focused and things like that. And this guy is Ed Catmull. I had never heard him. He was the former president of Pixar. And I guess he was the president 3 times because he was fired twice in there by Steve Jobs. And so he talked about that, working with Jobs, what that was like, and what it meant. Well, let me just play you this real quick little part of this thing here, to be not just in the tech we do, but in other tech.
So from the beginning of your career to now leading huge teams and projects and revenue, how did you keep the founder's mindset through it all? How did you keep that challenger mentality that you started with?
Well, part of it was to hang on to the very notion that we always have to do something new, and that trying to settle into something is a problem. It's like, if you think about it, there's a series of things you go through. You've got an idea, you develop it, you convince people it's good, you begin to build a team, you develop the skills, but it's also building teams around you for marketing and getting it out there. And I have to say, in all this is to ensure that you don't end up with a class system. And I've seen this in a lot of companies. The people that came up with the ideas are first class, other people are their supporters are the second class. And I understood early on that was a very bad idea, that there needs to be this respect. Now, building this team, at some point you settle into, oh, this is working, we're doing very well. That's the danger point. People have mastered a craft, they've got it going, and then they can pay attention to other things. So the mindset of or being an entrepreneur is that, okay, you have to remember what started that, because that starting point is always happening again, over and over. If you don't do it, someone else will.
Yep.
And I know, there was that book from many years ago.
I'm just going to stop right there, but I thought this guy was amazing. He just went on for quite a while. And it was interesting to go to a tech conference and see just these kind of, he does have a computer science background. I think he went to MIT or something like that back in the day. So, he's been in the business, but he's also the guy that built up a lot of the animation that you see in the Pixar products and things like that. So and then he was the president of the company running, all those things. And he seems like such a self-effacing, just a nice guy that you'd want to sit down and chat with. So I thought it was really nice that they, brought him out to chat with folks. Anyway, and then these guys, let me just play a little one from the quantum team.
However, classical computers are in the same computing class as an abacus, as they are governed by Boolean logic. And we just talked about quantum computers are governed by quantum mechanics. In each of these styles of computing, there are the fundamental building blocks. In classical computing, you have bits, either 0 or 1. In quantum computing, you have quantum bits or qubits, which can be in a superposition state of 0 and 1 at the same time. Now we have logic in these systems, right? So for a classical system, you can think of this input here of the NOT gate, which just takes the input and inverts that from 0 to 1. And in quantum computing, we have this lovely gate that doesn't even exist in classical computing, the square root of NOT, which can take 0 and prepare the superposition state of 0 plus 1. And qubits are real physical things. They exist in the real world. All right? You can take any two-level quantum mechanical system. All right? You could take what Mother Nature provides, say the electron, spin up or spin down, and that could be encoded as 0 and 1. You could find some particular atom that only has an excitation states that are just ground and say excited state. And at Google, we actually fabricate artificial atoms with just 2 levels. We do this by making them out of superconducting electrical circuits. We make them just like you would, like, say, a computer chip, with the difference that we have to cool these down, so we need refrigerators to actually make these systems cold. So you can think of these artificial atoms as resonators. We've got an image of them, one of those in the far left there. Inside of that, the X there is the capacitor. And as I've zoomed in on this with a scanning electron microscope, you can see this loop of metal around there forms an inductor. So together, this capacitor and inductor create a resonator. And to go from these qubits all the way up to a quantum computer, you need some additional 10,000 components in a sense to support that quantum processor so that we can cool it down and communicate with it. If we could roll the video. Once we take that processor, we actually mount it in a package and we put it at the bottom of our refrigerator, and you can see a bunch of radiation shields that go on to basically shield the higher temperature stages from those lower ones to keep that cold. We put on a vacuum can, we basically evacuate the space, so it's basically empty of space, and we have a mu metal shield that wraps around it to protect it from the Earth's magnetic field, and then we wrap it in the Bob Ross blanket of love. We push a button, we walk away, and a few days later the system is cold. So now that we've created this cold, quiet, and Zen-like space for our qubits, we can set out to communicate with them.
I'm going to stop right there. I mean, these guys just went on and on and on. And I've never, I have an undergraduate degree in physics and things like that, and did a bit of quantum physics in that vein, but, nothing like this. So I thought it was just really neat that they, went through and had people come. Maybe I'll retire to Santa Barbara and go work and do quantum computing or something like that. Because it looked like a really cool place. It's never too late. Well, except that at my age, I would probably be 20 years older than anybody else. Maybe I could sweep the floor or something like that. Anyway, so let me leave you with one thing. Google is throwing money at this, and they'd like to give it to you or me or all of us or something like that. Ted can probably speak to his experience doing this with some of the other challenges and things like that. But they're literally giving away a DeLorean sitting on top of a Tesla Model 3 plus $60,000 probably to maintain that or something for a few years. So that's like they figure $260,000. They are also giving real hard cash. So if we go to this link, and this challenge ends up in 80 days, things like that, and it's the Google Dev competition. Somebody suggested the $60K was for insurance, and they hired, somebody fairly famous to kind of run you through this here. I won't do that. And, Christopher Lloyd, if you don't remember from Back to the Future, you get the DeLorean.
Does he start out by saying, Marty?
Well, let's just play it here.
It's a good way of marketing.
Hey! You may recognize me from my acting work, but my real passion is programming. When I'm in the zone, I'm unstoppable. I don't know if you know this about me, but I'm really excited about the future. And Google's Gemini models are tech that can get us there. And you know I'm submitting to Google's new Gemini Developer Contest, which is so cool it'll blow your mind back to beta. A chance to win for the most creative, useful, and remarkable apps. If you're a dev or dev team that wants to submit, great. But you'll have some catching up to do. I just drank 3 cups of nitro cold brew, and I'm ready to crank out some genius. Time to go wormhole.
Anyway, I paid a bit of money for him. He's definitely an icon, right? So we all recognized him, even as long as it's been. So yeah, they're giving away the DeLorean, and they're giving away real money, like a lot of money. For you could, but they said, hey, you can only win one prize in this category. Crap. So I'm not going to do it now. But anyway, there's only 300,000, 200,000, things like that. And then they're, using this contest also to get applications based on top of their various frameworks. So like their web apps and Android and Flutter and things like that. So if anybody's interested, let me go back to the slide. Where the hell is that? Yeah, it's it's here. It's just ai.google.dev/competition. So anyway. And I think that was the last slide I had. So any more questions, things like that?
Are you posting this slide deck, Jerry?
Yes, I will. I will post. Well, the slide deck's up, and I'll put a link to it in the chat there on our regular chat. Does that work?
Great.
Okay. All right. Well, that's it for me. Let me, have any more, does anybody have any questions, I guess, that I can answer?
Awesome presentation, Jerry. Thank you.
Yeah, good.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah,
no problem.
Yeah, thanks, Jerry.
Much better than last week's, dude.
Hey, I thought you did a good job. I watched it.
I still think you did a better job. That was much more fun. So
yeah,
cool.
Yeah.